Hi and welcome to the Global Travel Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Collins, who with my expert guests will take you on a weekly journey to destinations around the globe, providing travel inspiration, itinerary ideas, practical tips and more to help you plan your next travel adventure. Hi and welcome to episode 26 of the Global Travel Planner Podcast. Today I continue my conversation with Monique, who shared her experience of moving from Australia to Norway in episode 25. We explore why Norway should be on your travel list, discover why you should ditch the cruise ship for a road trip, why summer is a perfect time to visit, and the magic of Christmas in Norway. We'll also discuss the incredible fjords and breathtaking natural landscapes that make Norway an ideal destination for an authentic, less tourist-packed European adventure. Join us for an insightful discussion filled with travel tips to help you plan your perfect Norwegian adventure. We pick up the discussion where I asked Monique, why visit Norway?
Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind, and it's because I've just done this myself, is come in summer. Come in summer and go up north to the Arctic, and everything that you thought you knew about Norway, like snow, polar bears, which don't live on the mainland, they live on Svalbard, the aurora, that's what people think of.
Yep.
And if you come in summer and go to the Arctic, like I hate using this word to describe water, but I'm going to use it, turquoise beaches, like think Maldivian water. Like it is so clear, it is so Tiffany blue. There are mountains, there are private islands, there are treehouses. There's all these things, I guess, that are just the antithesis of the stereotype of Norway. And yes, we all know the fjords. But then as well, if you come to the south, there are summer beaches. It can get to 25, 26, even 30 degrees, and you can go swimming off these gorgeous little islands. Yeah, there's so much more to Norway than snow, the aurora, cruising. That's one of the big things, I think.
I was going to say that. And how many people actually go on a Norwegian fjord cruise and don't get off? Just stay on
exactly.
there. And I have to say, you're missing out. You're so missing out. I can say that from just living in a village with Doug for a short period of time. You're just missing out doing that because, yes, you see the pretty fjords and you see that, but actually you don't meet the people. And to me, traveling is also about meeting the people. And, you have to get off the boat to do that.
Exactly.
Exactly. And would you do a road trip in Norway? Would that be something that you'd recommend?
1,000,000%. It is one of the best ways to see Norway. And the Norwegian title for it is Statens vegvesen, which is like the Norwegian Roads Administration. They have 18 different scenic routes that they've kind of mapped out. And they have worked really hard to build rest stops and different viewpoints and all sorts of things for people when they're doing these routes. And they're dotted all over the country. Most of them are actually up in the north, but there are, you can come down to the Hardanger region, which is actually fjord country. But Hardanger is also known for, being apple growing country. So they've got a high concentration of cideries there. But you're not allowed to advertise alcohol in Norway. So it's kind of a slow burning process to get this region known for its, cider.
Yeah.
And doing the drive-through there, I've done it before, and it is just unbelievable. You'll be driving along and then all of a sudden the trees will clear from the side and you've got this massive fjord on one side, and you come around the corner and there's a waterfall rushing under the road, and there's just rolling hills, and we went to a beautiful glacial lake there, which was like the green of the room behind you. I can see the beautiful green on the wall. It's just phenomenal. So there's by car is amazing. And we have actually road tripped from where we are in Stavanger all the way down the south coast into Sweden in our electric car.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, it is incredibly easy to drive around Norway in an electric vehicle. Electric cars are also really smart. So if you ask them to show you, the route to wherever you want to go, if you're not going to have enough charge to get there, it'll find you a stop along the way to charge. And there's you can charge everywhere here. So
that's really good. I always think that it's with, I guess, I don't know, kind of cliche Scandinavia, but I always think they're quite head on things like that in terms of environmental. I won't mention the whales, but they are pretty good with environmentally quite friendly. So that's really good to know that you can do that. And it's really funny because whenever Doug and I see a waterfall, this is just something that we say, but I'm going to share it because it is funny. So we say, when people go, oh, that waterfall, oh, that's really beautiful. And Doug and I will go, that's not a waterfall. We've been to Norway.
It's so funny. My partner said the same thing. When he was in Australia, I was like, oh, we could walk out to, I think it was Kalamunda Falls or something like that. I was like, oh, it's a waterfall. He's like, that's not a waterfall.
So you need to say, that's not a waterfall. I've been to Norway. Or I am Norwegian. He can say that. But we just go, we just look at each other and go, that's not a waterfall. I've been to Norway.
Yeah.
And then look away and smile.
Exactly. And it's just... you're bound to see a waterfall on a road trip around here. The road that we take to our cabin. So another interesting thing about Norway is pretty much everyone owns, at least every family owns a cabin, which is their weekend getaway. So I can't remember how many. I think there's something like 300,000 or 500,000. No, that can't be right. Anyway, there's a lot of cabins and everyone has a cabin. So we drive out to the cabin, which is about a 2-hour drive from where we live. And one time when we were driving out there, I counted something like 55 waterfalls in an hour that I could see just running down the sides of the mountain. So this is just, the drive that we do every day to the cabin. Actually, there is also a beautiful spot where, again, the hills open up and you can see straight down a fjord. And this fjord is where quite a famous hike out to, Westerners call it Pulpit Rock, but in Norwegian it's called Pinnekjøtt. And Pinnekjøtt is famous because it was in, a Tom Cruise movie. See, you can tell I'm a movie buff because I can't remember the name of it, but it's one of those action movies that, there's a Mission Impossible, maybe it is. I don't know either. Yeah. But these are some of the amazing things that people miss when they are on a cruise, because the cruise just, you can get off and you can do a, one of the little activities that they have planned, but you don't get to stay in the treehouse or the cabin that's right on the edge of a rushing river, or the cabin that, I was just at one up in Bodø that was cantilevered over the water, and I had views of not quite out to Lofoten Wall, but all these massive mountains. And, you don't get that when you're on a cruise.
I have to say, I did see that on your Instagram, Monique, and I was instantly jealous. I was like, oh, that is fabulous. So I will share a link to your Instagram, but if we can have some pictures as well for the show notes, that would be really good, because that's such a visual, description, and and I can kind of imagine it. And I also have cheated because I have seen the Instagram shot, but I can imagine anybody listening is thinking, oh, I just want to see what that looks like, because the picture of it in their mind, and it's even more beautiful than you are imagining, believe me. And I think
100%.
The natural beauty, because I've lived in Switzerland, which is also another beautiful country, but and people always ask me, oh, Switzerland, and I went, to be honest, and yes, and nothing against Switzerland, you are a beautiful country, but for me, Norway tops it. The only place that I have recently been to that I have said was as beautiful as Norway for me, it was New Zealand. I went to South Island in New Zealand, and I was just blown away, honestly. And it's really funny, isn't it? Because they've got the fjord land. It's kind of northern, southern hemisphere, same kind of, I don't know if it's the same kind of longitude, but it's kind of mirrored. You can kind of feel the Norwegian vibe in South Island, New Zealand.
Very much so. And it's interesting that you say that because when we were living in Perth, my partner so desperately wanted to go to New Zealand because he'd heard and seen how similar it kind of was to Norway. So they, like you said, they've got that fjordland, they've got, the mountains and those beautiful, beautiful big glacial lakes. And it's very similar landscapes, I guess. We just obviously over here don't have that beautiful moldy culture that they have, over there. But there is the Sami culture here, which is,
yes,
way up north.
Yes, and I haven't been. I have to say, I haven't been up to the Arctic Circle, and that's somewhere that I'd love to go and visit there. That's somewhere that's definitely high on my bucket list. So if I was going to visit, because you've actually mentioned, so I've been to Norway. Both times that I've been in the winter time, kind of October, November, and February. So what would be the best time of year to visit? So I know you've mentioned the summer, so that's something I hadn't thought about because immediately everybody thinks winter, see the snow, do a bit of skiing. But summer, okay, and long days.
So exactly. So I would say, okay, obviously winter is a wonderful time for people to come if they've always dreamt of seeing the Northern Lights, if they want to see snow and experience snow, if they want to experience polar night, get above the Arctic Circle and the sun never comes above the horizon. So it doesn't mean you don't get daylight. You do get daylight. It's just more like that early morning kind of glow and dusk pretty much, for the 4 or 5 hours that you might, I don't even think it's 5 hours. It could be 3 or 4 hours you get light.
Yeah.
So winter's obviously great for that. Spring is an incredible time to come to see everything waking up again. And May is actually, so May 17th is Norwegian Independence Day or Norwegian National Day. And it's such a special time to be here because the patriotism and the celebrations and that go on that day, it puts to shame, our national day in Australia. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't celebrate our national day in Australia, but over here it is just such a special day, and that it's so steeped in tradition. So, if you come on or in spring, May in particular, you can experience that. Summertime is incredible. If you go to the Arctic Circle in summertime and you get a blue sky day, it's 23 degrees. The sun never sets, so you can sit up at midnight, 1 a.m., and it looks like dusk.
Yeah.
And
wow.
It's so special. And generally at that time of day, it really calms down. So if you're anywhere near the water, it's flat. You've got this beautiful dusk. Everything's really quiet because people have either gone to bed, or if they're, like you and enjoying the night, they're sitting up, but they're just, quietly enjoying it. Summer's also berry picking season, so you can go wild berry picking. There's, everyone's out having barbecues in public. You can go swimming. It's still beautiful to do the, the sauna and the swim.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which is also amazing in winter.
Yeah, it just sounds fun. I think I just need to move over to Norway for 12 months.
Look, I'd recommend it.
Don't give me that idea. Because I would. So tell me about, okay, so you've mentioned some of the specific events and festivals that are going on. So that's really good. So I like the idea of that. And I'm going to have to bring up Christmas because I love Christmas. And so tell me about Christmas in Norway.
Okay, so Norwegians, as I said, they love their traditions, right? So again, Christmas is so traditional. And oh my gosh, there was one Christmas where I think it was 3 or 4 nights in a row we had Pinnekjøtt, which is one of their traditional Christmas dishes, and it's delicious. But 4 nights in a row was a lot. But it's basically like ribs of lamb that they have dried and salted, and then they rehydrate that for a few hours, and they serve that and like some sausages and they kind of boil all that together, and then they serve it with potatoes and a kohlrabi mash. And if they're being fancy, they'll get some blomkål. No, it wasn't called. What are they? Oh my god! I forgot the English word for them.
Yeah, I see. That's good. That is good.
Oh no, Brussels sprouts. Wasn't called.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's a very traditional, a traditional dish, and every single Norwegian gets excited for Pinnekjøtt around Christmas. So I think there's like 3 kind of really traditional dishes which you come out around Christmas, and here in Stavanger we don't necessarily get a white Christmas because we're on the coast, and it doesn't get as cold here.
Yeah, yeah.
But last year we did actually get a white Christmas, which was absolutely beautiful. And everything's just because the sun sets at about 3:30 or 4. Everything's so cozy. People really get into putting out candles, and they, like, no joke, people change their curtains, they change the cushions on their couch, and they make everything red and gold or silver, and it's just so very Christmassy. And glögg, which is their version of like a mulled wine, they start doing that. And what else is there? What's the word for gingerbread again? Anyway, there's lots of gingerbread, which is different to the gingerbread over here is different to like a Czech gingerbread, which is really spongy and soft. The gingerbread over pepperkaka, that's what it is. The pepperkaka here is
it crunchy?
Sorry?
Is it hard and crunchy?
Is.
Yeah.
It's very thin and hard and crunchy. So it's all those warm, beautiful things that everyone thinks about when they think of a white Christmas. They do here. It's just that there's a very, very Norwegian twist to the sorts of foods that they serve. And there's actually a Norwegian Christmas series that I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, came out on Netflix, and it was available on Netflix in Australia. So I had so many people messaging me saying, have you watched Home for Christmas? And I'm like, yes, of course I have. So it's called Hjem til jul over here, so Home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And in that there's a great scene where the main character is wanting, like, she's going to hold or celebrate Christmas at her house, and there's this great scene where she's forgotten the almond for the rice, for the riskrem, which is like a creamed rice, and it's such a traditional dessert. Like it's just creamed rice, but you put one almond in this giant bowl, and you basically have to eat the entire bowl until someone finds the almond.
Right.
But if you find the almond, you're not supposed to let anyone know. So you kind of like hide it in your mouth, and everyone has to eat the entire bowl before you're like, I win.
Oh, that sounds good. And of course she forgot it, so everybody would just be sitting there for the whole night. Exactly.
Oh. And that's my biggest fear, because I'm not the biggest fan of creamed rice. The dairy just isn't my thing. So I have like the tiniest bit, and I'm like, stop making me eat this creamed rice.
Yeah, somebody find it. Yeah, I suppose the thing is somebody finds it and they're not going to say anything. So you just have to keep going and just having a little grain of rice at a time, a little bit of the creamed rice, and
exactly.
And hope everybody else eats loads of it. So that sounds, is anything else like, because I don't like fish, so this is a big thing for me when I travel. I was in Japan last year and lost weight, which everybody always laughs because they're like, there's other food in Japan than fish, and I'm like, I just didn't float my boat. So what would I do in Norway? Because I think of Norway and I do think about eating fish. So if I went out to a restaurant, and I know I can get the usual kind of, fast foods and pizza, because I have been, but if I wanted something traditionally Norwegian, would I expect to be served fish, or am I going to get something else?
It's funny because everyone always associates, like one of the first questions that I get when I'm back in Australia and I'm catching up with people is, you must be eating so much salmon and all the pickled herring. And I'm like, I think you're incorrect. So people assume that there's a lot of seafood, and there is, don't get me wrong, but the national dish of Norway is actually fårikål, which is basically stewed lamb and cabbage. So as much as there is, this assumption that there's a lot of salmon, there is also a lot of cod. Cod is a very prized fish over here. And a lot of the dried bacala that you see in Italy and all over the world, any of that kind of like dried fish actually all comes from northern Norway. They export a lot of it. Sorry. Yes, northern Norway exports a lot of all of that dried fish. So as much as there is this like big seafood industry, most of the kind of traditional Norwegian dishes are meat-based. So there is a lot of lamb. Like I said, Pinnekjøtt is one of the
sounds
Christmas
very hearty,
dishes.
that does. That it just sounds like that, again, hearty kind of meaty, lots of kind of carb, kind of, gravy, hot. I just think of those kind of Northern European, again, like British dishes. I guess we like those kind of stews, Irish stew, that sort of thing. I already get nice, good Irish stew. So that's good to know. So I won't starve.
No, you won't starve. And I guess like it's very indicative of 100 years ago. They weren't growing coriander in their gardens. So like the kind of very traditional dishes are very indicative of what they had available to them. So like a dish that you won't eat, but one that's very, very common is cod with bits of bacon in like just melted butter. And that's served over potatoes. That's a very, very common dish. And it's making use of everything they had available to them: pigs, fish, they had dairy, and potatoes.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
But you won't starve.
No, that's good. That's always good to know. After I learned my kind of lesson after, which wasn't a bad thing to lose a few pounds while I was walking around Japan, but I'll be prepared next time a little bit more for the food. So now I travel quite light because I tend to go for long periods at a time. So if I'm packing my case for Norway, whatever time of year, so I guess I'm going to put you on the spot. What should I bring? Or what should I not bring?
A puffer jacket.
I'll bring, okay. It doesn't matter when I come, a puffer jacket, yeah?
It does not matter when you come, a puffer jacket, because like I said, it's, what are we? It's summer now, and it's about 9 degrees and raining outside here in Norway. So if you bring like one of those light down puffer jackets, it'll get you through any season. I definitely bring that. I would also bring a good pair of walking shoes. As we've discussed, Norwegians love getting out in nature, and you wouldn't, like, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't attempt to, do a little hike somewhere or a walk somewhere. Also, it's worth mentioning that like a lot of European cities, there are a lot of cobblestones. So something to not pack, like don't bring the stilettos, whatever you do, chunkier heels if you're going to do that.
No, that's a good point. For anywhere in Europe, really, I always think comfy shoes. I've got to the point where I have to just wear. It's got to be comfy shoes for me wherever I go. So the high heels kind of got relegated. I think I was probably mid-40s when I was like, nah, no more high heels. I can't tot around in them anymore. But
exactly. One of the other things, you're a big tea drinker, as am I.
Yes.
Bring tea bags.
I don't go anywhere in the world without my assembled tea bags. My Twinings assembled tea bags go everywhere. I take a box with me, literally everywhere I go in the world. I cannot do without tea.
So one of the things that will absolutely appall you is the price of a box of 25 Twinings tea bags here. It'll set you back at least 12 to 15 Australian dollars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's if you can even find them.
I'm going to let you into a little secret. So when Doug was doing his Erasmus training thing in Leerdal, which I've pronounced it wrong, so apologies. It was so expensive for food that I actually came over to Norway, and all I had in my suitcase was 23 kilograms worth of food, tinned food. I will just say it was all tinned food and stuff like that, but that's all I brought. Packet food, tinned food, so that he was set up for 3 months. Because I was kind of sending him packages of food because it was literally the cost was so expensive. And I came through with this suitcase full of food. Then I had to get myself to him, which took me about 4 hours. I had to get a coach, and then another coach, and then another coach, and then whatever. I met him eventually. I think it took me hours. And I just had this small little backpack in my clothes for the entire week. I was there 10 days, I think, was just in this little backpack. But I remember, so cost. I think another thing to bring, we're talking about packing, is plenty of money. Would you agree with that?
Yes. But one of the things that I always say to people, because I've asked a lot of people, since I've been here, so many people have been like, oh my gosh, Norway looks amazing. I'd love to go there one day. And I'm like, well, why don't you? And they're like, oh, it's just so expensive. And I'm like, yeah, but you go to Iceland, you go to Switzerland, you go to like Japan in peak season, in cherry blossom season, that's expensive. So is Mallorca. Like Mallorca's expensive in peak season. So that's not an excuse. There's another reason that people aren't coming. And I think it's because people just don't know enough about Norway yet. Specifically Australians, Norway's not historically been very good at promoting themselves as a tourism destination. So I think there's this
so true. No, I'm just thinking when you say that, it's so true that you've made some really good points there, because coming from Australia, people will mention to me they're going to go to Iceland. I hear that all the time. And Iceland have done a fantastic job over the last few years of promoting themselves. Oh my goodness, talk about a country that took themselves from basically bankruptcy to the stratosphere. They did a fantastic job of it. And Norway doesn't. I don't understand why, because Norway, I've not been to Iceland yet, so I'll temper that. So I can't comment on Iceland, and I would like to go. But I have been to Norway and was absolutely blown away with just how amazing it is and how stunning it is. And I think that's a really good point. So if you're going to be going all the way from Australia to Europe anyway, why don't you add Norway into that? If you're going to go, you're thinking 100%. Of Iceland, go to Norway. It's just, as they say, it's these countries aren't, we're not, it isn't cheap. We're not going to say it is cheap. It isn't. You need to be aware, and you need to be budgeting. You need to be thinking about, making it so you do things that will fit your budget. But if you're going to do those things anyway, why don't you go to Norway? Why don't you go and explore it?
This is my argument too, because, like I said, everyone's like, oh, it's just so expensive. And I'm like, don't tell me that it's expensive. And then next thing I see, you're in New York.
Yes, true. True.
True. There's, yes, it's expensive, but there's obviously other reasons there that aren't, that are stopping people. And like I said, I think it is this, Norway hasn't been as aggressive in marketing themselves as what Iceland has. And you can see the aurora in Norway. In fact, you've probably got more options for accommodation, for activities, for all those sorts of things in Norway than you do in Iceland, because Iceland's a lot smaller. It's actually more expensive for fuel there.
And probably less touristy, actually, as well. So thinking about that, because of how popular Iceland has become, there's just so many people there. So if you want to go somewhere where you're going to have a different experience, and you want to have that kind of that Scandinavian or that Northern European feel, then somewhere like Norway, which is so stunningly beautiful. And I can say I've been, I don't know how many countries I've been to, I don't really count, but I've been to a lot of countries, and I've lived in a lot of countries, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, that along with New Zealand, which I have said, because it just took my breath away, the other country in the world that has taken my breath away is Norway. And I'm just going to mention Glencoe, Scotland, because that's one of my favourite places on earth. But again, it's that kind of, I know what it is for me. It's that landscape, the mountains, the streams, the greenery, just that entire, it is so pretty. So I guess those are the three places that when I think of places that have taken my breath away, that I've actually stood there and went, wow, what a beautiful planet we live on. Those are the three places that come to my mind. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, Norway's not as touristy as, other places that people go to for particular experiences. And just then when we were discussing it, I was thinking about, everyone has this, bucket list idea or bucket list goal of going and swimming in the Blue Lagoon in Iceland. And then when they get there, they didn't realize how many people are there, how, it's a bit icky. There's so many people. It's really busy. I mean, you can hire a floating sauna in Norway and, get nice and warm in the sauna, a view of the fjords, walk outside, jump into the fjord water, get back inside and get all warm. And that's just for you. There are all these alternative experiences that you can have. It might not be that bucket list, but you can find these beautiful things that I guess maybe not so many people get to experience, and that just feel a lot more authentic as well.
So what advice would you give to anybody who is thinking about not just going on holiday to Norway, but actually thinking about moving to Norway?
I think be prepared for the weather, first off. If you've not lived, at as far north as this, or, the equivalent of as far south as this, it's going to take a lot to get used to the fact that, in winter, there's not, like where we are, we get daylight, full daylight, but only about 5 or 6 hours of it. And there's obviously a lot of rain, which makes it a beautifully green place. But there's a lot of rain. And I think you have to be prepared for what that does to you mentally, because that kind of compounds a lot of the emotions and stress and everything that you're dealing with, when you do move countries. And if you're only going to be moving here for a short amount of time, don't even bother trying to set up bank accounts or anything like that, because you're not even going to get an appointment in that amount of time. And I think my biggest piece of advice for anyone who would think about moving here is just go whole hog and really throw yourself into, the Norwegian lifestyle, the little Norwegian quirks, all that sort of thing. Throw yourself into it and experience it, because from my personal experience, kind of clinging on to all these things back home, it was hindering me. It was holding me back, and it was making me resent being here. Not entirely, but there was this slight resentment, or I guess it doesn't do anything to help you adjust and enjoy being here, to still be attached to back home.
That's a good point. I think there's always an internal struggle when, however much, because I've moved a lot, and however much I've wanted to move to a new country, there's always that internal struggle and that little, you want the familiar, and it's that desire for the familiar. And I have, it's really because I have lived in quite a few places, and I have such fond memories of each of those places. And I remember when I moved on to the next country, and it was the last place that I really wanted to be. And it's just that kind of sense of familiar, what and once you kind of let go of that and just go, you know what, I'm gonna breathe this in and take it all in, then it just it just becomes such a lived and amazing experience that you'll reflect back on and you go, wow, I can't believe I did that was amazing.
100%. 100%. And it's like having these little tethers, holding you to the ground, and as soon as you let them go, you're like a balloon and you can float, and it's all of a sudden everything becomes so much better. And it sounds so ridiculous, but it was such a big step for me to cancel my Australian phone number. And I was putting it off, and I was like, oh, but when I go back to Australia, I'll have my phone number. And, but I was paying 60 Australian dollars a month, or $50, whatever it was, to have this phone number that I was never using. And it was such a big step to cancel that because I felt like I was giving up Australia. I felt like I was giving up me being Australian, and it was so silly. And I was like, once I'd done it, I realized that it was something so trivial, like having an Australian phone number, that was causing all this cognitive dissonance where I was like, oh, but I'm in a new country. I don't know. Oh, Australia. Oh, no. Oh. But it was causing all these internal complications.
But make that cut, get rid of the number, and it's like, right, okay, one thing less, and it's another kind of commitment to being in Norway, being Norwegian, being surrounded by everything Norway.
100%.
So I'm going to ask you, though, what are your future plans in terms of travel? Because I know obviously you've got your home in Norway now, you're settled in Norway, but where are you off to next in terms of whether it's in Norway or somewhere else in the world? Have you got any plans?
Just for like traveling fun?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to be spending my birthday, which is the 1st of August. So I will be spending my birthday in Porto, in Portugal.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so my mum's birthday is actually the day after mine, and she's having a milestone birthday. She's turning 30.
Sounds like my mum. My mum's been 49 forever.
I know, right? So my mum actually said to me the other day, she's like, Mon, I lied to you. I'm actually turning 35. So she's having her milestone birthday the day, she's the 2nd of August. So we're spending some time in Porto, and then she's going to be coming to Norway for the first time ever.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And then so I've pretty much backed up. I've got Porto, then Mum's going to be here, and then my partner and I are going to go to Saint Jean Cara. No, that's wrong. We are going just outside of Nice.
Oh, okay. France.
We're going to France.
South of France.
We're going to the south of France. And then, yeah, I've got a couple of other work trips booked up that involve the Amalfi Coast, working on some Vietnam. I've got lots of things coming up. The life of a travel writer, right?
Absolutely. I'm busy planning my trip for September to the States, so I'm quite looking forward to that.
Ooh.
But this is it. I'm going to ask you this one tip, and this may be relevant because it's going to be your mum's first time in Norway as well. What would be the one tip you'd give to anyone who is visiting Norway for the first time?
I would definitely say just come with big open eyes and a big open heart and just soak everything up, because it's such a special place, and it's so different to, especially if you come from Queensland or, Western Australia or somewhere in the States, wherever you come from, it's just such a different country. And I think, come with no expectations and you'll leave so incredibly full. And just like I had to moving here, I think you've got to look at everything, at all the positives, right? Because it's going to rain. Like, I'm just going to say that. It's going to rain when you're here. And you could let that ruin your holiday. Or you could look at it and go, holy cow, look at how beautiful and green and lush this country is. Look at these waterfalls. Look at everyone out enjoying themselves despite it raining. Actually, it's really cozy to wear a coat again. Come with big open eyes, a big open heart, and a whole lot of positivity.
And then for the rest of your life, you'll be going, that's not a waterfall. I've been to Norway. Thanks so much, Monique, for coming on to the podcast and talking all about your life in Norway. I just love, how privileged am I? We're talking about as being travel writers as well, but how privileged am I as a podcast to be able to chat to you about your life in Norway? I mean, it's fantastic. It's amazing. And to share a little bit more about Norway with our listeners as well, because I'm always out there to promote beautiful places in the world that people should be thinking about going to visit, for sure. Absolutely. So thanks so much, Monique. It's been great talking to you.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. I'm privileged to speak to you too.
Oh, thanks, Monique. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. For more details and links to everything we discussed today, check out the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on your favourite podcast app, because your feedback helps us reach more travel enthusiasts just like you. Anyway, that leaves me to say, as always, happy global travel planning.